When it comes to a lot of the successful movies of the modern day, most of the gorgeous ones at least, are animated. Think about it. Every single Pixar film has raked in well more than $100 million. Disney is a global powerhouse due to its animation. And even smaller animation studios like Dreamworks or Illumination have put their names out there as animation attraction. However, with these animation studios becoming such global phenomenons, let's take a look at another form of a global phenomenon today. That's right, superhero films. From your MCU to your DCEU, there's no denying that superhero and animated films alike have become legendary and iconic. However, there are plenty successful crossovers between these two topics. You've got films such as Big Hero 6, The Incredibles, the Lego Batman movie, and the movie that inspired me to make this video, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Maybe these crossovers have proven that it's just a better idea to animate superhero movies instead of having so many live-action versions of them. Especially for the wacky side of comic books like Fantastic Four or Venom. Hey guys, my name is DJ and today I asked the question, should superhero movies be animated? So, as animated movies go, there is something you can do with the characters and actions that you can't really do in a live-action setting. Actually, not just something, anything! Animated movies allow directors and writers to do anything they want to without the limitations of the real world. You can get away with executing outrageous ideas, like for instance having Superman be defeated by gum, or even having Batman face off against Dracula, because these movies are animated. Hell, imagine if these movies were to take place in a live-action setting. People would be in outrage at these movies and ideas, and they would surely fail at the box office. But one of the more concerning things about the superhero movies sticking to their live-action setting is mainly more due to the more wacky side of their comic book counterparts, especially the design of some of the characters. So far, some of the Marvel and DC films have had their bad shares of CGI. And yes, special effects have gotten to the point where you can have a giant purple alien fighting against a man in a robotic suit, a wizard, an alien with an antenna, a man with a gun, a kid that shoots webbing out of his hands, and WWE star Dave Bautista at the same time. However, even though this was really done well in Infinity War, there are still limitations to CGI. And maybe with that CGI, stuff would just look a little too unrealistic for a live-action setting. Let's look at all the appearances of the Green Goblin from the Sam Raimi trilogy, the Amazing Spider-Man series, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, if you look at the Green Goblin from the Sam Raimi trilogy, there's something missing from it. Specifically, the Goblin aspect of him. And this makes sense for what the franchise was trying to do. Having the Green Goblin be anything more than a Power Rangers-esque villain would probably make the movie impossible to take seriously. Imagine if Spider-Man, in a real-world setting, was fighting a goblin. This would look absolutely ridiculous. And this real-world feeling that the Spider-Man trilogy, like The Dark Knight, tries to convey would immediately be a joke that we would all still laugh at to this day. Speaking of a joke we all laugh at, how about the portrayal of the Green Goblin? The new Goblin? The Goblin in the Amazing Spider-Man series. Yeah, let's just look at the Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, this was what Sony thought was acceptable in 2014. If you think this looks like some crackhead that you found down the street, let me remind you that the Green Goblin looks way less realistic in the comics. Imagine this Green Goblin with a goddamn purple hat and even more green. I know, it looks ridiculous. However, let's look at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse's Green Goblin. Now, even though I'll admit it still looks a bit outrageous, Green Goblin still fits in this movie because it's animated. You can't really have this really bright green and purple outfit style Green Goblin in a live-action setting. Like I said earlier, it would look a bit ridiculous for this kind of Green Goblin, this bright green and purple villain in an MCU movie where all of the villains tend to be a much more darker tone. Take a look at pretty much any villain in the MCU. They all have a physically darker tone to them. They all have a black or gray or dark blue color scheme to their physical appearance. However, to have this Green Goblin, this bright green and purple villain running around against a bright red and young Spider-Man, it would look a bit out of place in this MCU live-action setting. However, this can be given to way more wacky characters in the comic book landscape. Off the top of my head, you have the Fantastic Four, Galactus, Green Lantern, Brainiac, Raven, and many more who would be way more suitable for an animated film. Hell, we already have seen what too much CGI would look like with Green Lantern or Mr. Fantastic's weird, stretchy body. And honestly, how does no one else talk about this as much? Like, his stretchy body looks freaking weird. And those movies were barely even scratching the surface of the more outlandish and wacky characters in comics. But in the world of animation, these characters would look way more normal in that environment. Instead of spending a lot of the budget on a pretty okay looking thing, why not just draw him into the world where he would look like he belongs? Now, I can already hear you guys typing away in the comments. What about the Hulk? I do understand that the Hulk is more or less a more cartoony looking figure, and trust me, he does look great in his respective MCU movies. I'll even say that, for the time, the Hulk looks pretty amazing in his 2003 adaptation. But even though he looks good, you kinda gotta admit, he's pretty much just a giant green muscly guy. I mean, he really does just have a human shape to him, only really buff and big. It's kinda it. And I will admit, he is an exception, but for every realistic looking Hulk, you do have a Steppenwolf on the other side of the spectrum. So, now that we have these great animated superhero movies, with unnatural and almost comical shapes to their characters, maybe, just maybe, these large-scale superhero companies could learn a thing or two from the unique visualization of these very successful animated superhero movies. Anyways, that's gonna have to be the end of this video here. Did you guys like it? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more of my over-analytic and dorky content, why not check out this video here? And while you're staring at this outro screen, why not click this little subscribe button? Anyways, hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye! Yo.